Tamir. Question: when is a child not a child? Answer: when it's a black child. That question and answer came to me when I heard that the police killing of 12-year-old Tamir Rice of Cleveland was ruled justified by two so-called independent boards of inquiry recently. The cop was justified, they ruled, because he saw a gun, period. Did it matter that the gun was a toy? Or that Tamir was a boy? No. Both facts were declared irrelevant. And a beautiful black boy is dead. What kind of country is this where this can happen? What kind of system is this where a child's life can be so easily, so utterly dismissed? For almost a year, state forces dithered around the case. Now they have issued their cold, leaden decision. No biggie. The cop was scared. It's justified. Next. What's next? Killing pregnant women? Pregnant black women who are suspected of birthing black boys? In the name of protocol, in the name of tradition, in the cold name of fear, children are killed so that killer cops can feel safe. If this be the system supported by black taxes and black votes, then such a system must be abolished. For any such system that endangers black children must be deemed illegitimate. Such a system does not deserve to exist. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Noelle Hanrahan of Prison Radio. The latest outrage. The recent trial of 47-year-old computer tech Michael Dunn for the killing of teenager Jordan Davis and attempted murder of 3 other black youth is a fitting reminder of the real state of black people in America during Black History Month. While he had a hung jury in the Davis murder, the convictions for attempted murder essentially delivers a life sentence, some said. Right. People are hoping, and reporters are all but predicting, but be not surprised if the 3 attempted murder convictions are reversed by a state appeals court for failure to prove specific intent against the boys, and Dunn is free as a proverbial bird. This is, after all, Florida. Moreover, it's America. Be not surprised. The courts of the nation aren't your courts. The judges of these courts see you as aliens in the land of your forefathers who've been here for almost 500 years. It was ever thus. This may be Black History Month, but that ain't changed. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Noelle Hanrahan of Prison Radio. Beyond Trayvon. The Trayvon Martin case has rushed around the globe at cyberspeed, due in large part to social media. It has all the markings of a national tragedy and, of course, is an ongoing one, despite recent charges. But what is not considered is what has come before. Florida has a long and nasty history of events such as these, but often the antagonist is a cop, not a civilian playing cop, as here. In May 1980, Miami's Liberty City erupted into an orgy of flame, anger, and rage, stemming from the police beating of 33-year-old Arthur McDuffie, a black insurance exec. McDuffie wasn't just beaten, he was beaten to death by 4 cops. An all-white jury later acquitted all 4 of all charges. My remembrance of McDuffie could have been substituted by a slew of other names, most forgotten by all but family and friends, casualties of a long and dirty war waged by white supremacists, whether armed by the state or privately. People like 21-year-old Randy Heath, killed by a cop in Hialeah, and acquitted Timothy Dwayne Thomas. Anybody remember that name? Anybody? 19 years old, and a resident of a neighborhood called Over the Rhine in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was killed. His killer? A white cop who, though later indicted, walked free, acquitted. Indeed, the so-called Move bombing, when men, women, and babies of Move were targeted, attacked, and bombed on May 13, 1985. 11 people bombed and shot to death. There were no acquittals. Of course, there were no charges. No charges in a massacre. Yes, these are distinctions, but they are distinctions without a difference. For all the cases speak to the cheapness of black life and the American way of acquittal after acquittal after acquittal of white killer cops, or in the Move massacre on Mother's Day, no charges at all. In the Trayvon Martin case, we have a guy playing cop and a dead 17-year-old black boy. Close enough. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Noelle Hanrahan of Prison Radio. Tears of sorrow and rage. For decades, the Oakland Police Department has been the focus of fear. Fear because the agency, which recruited heavily from the South, had people on staff who used their office to further their hatred of blacks in a long habit of repression and violence. For a brief time, the Black Panther Party put a crimp in their strut as it became a local and then national presence of resistance to their repeated assaults on black Oaklanders. But the Black Panther Party is no more, and the repression has come surging back. The family of Alan Blueford know that reality all too well. For on May 6, 2012, the 18-year-old was shot and killed by the OPD's Miguel Masso. Alan was one of countless youngsters forced to submit to the outrageous stop-and-frisk tactics. Alan, rightly, was afraid of such contact, and following his instincts, took flight. Masso chased him. Masso killed him. Now, the parents of Alan, Adam and Geraldine Blueford, are demanding answers, and all they're getting are lies. The story of what happened has changed at least half a dozen times, and Oakland's political officials have promised much and delivered nothing. For forced to support those who voted for them, or the OPD, they invariably opt for the latter. Thus, from the people that are sworn to represent them, they get evasion, or worse, silence. For the OPD has money and power, and when have you ever seen any politician turn their back on that combination? As for the family, they continue to organize resistance to this campaign of repression. You can join that campaign at justice4, the numeral 4, alanblueford.org. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are recorded by Noelle Hanrahan of Prison Radio. Oscar Grant and you. Like you, I've seen the searing phone camera tape of the killing of 22-year-old Oscar Grant of Oakland, California. And although it's a terrible thing to see, it's not the most shocking thing. That's been how the media has responded to this police killing by creating a defense of error. This defense that the killer of Oscar Grant mistook his pistol for his taser has been made by both local and national news reporters, even though they haven't heard word one from Johannes Messerly, the BART cop who wasn't even interviewed for weeks after shooting an unarmed man. Imagine this, if the roles were reversed, that is, if bystanders and witnesses had video of Grant shooting Messerly, would the media be suggesting a defense for him? Would Grant have been free to roam, to leave the state a week later? Would he have made bail? The shooting of Oscar Grant III is but the latest West Coast version of Amadou Diallo, of Sean Bell, and of hundreds of other black men. And like them, don't be surprised if there's an acquittal again. Oscar Grant is you, and you are all him, because you know in the pit of your stomach that it could have been you. You know this. And what's worse is this. You pay for this every time you pay taxes, and you endorse this every time you vote for politicians who sell out in a heartbeat. You pay for your killers to kill you in the name of a bogus, twisted law, and then pay for the state that defends them. Something is terribly wrong here, and it's the system itself. Until that has changed, nothing is changed, for we will be out here again chanting another name. From Death Row, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are produced by Noelle Hanrahan for Prison Radio. No safe age.
It's boys' night out, and a group of brothers are having a bachelor's party at a strip club. One of them is particularly thrilled because his marriage to the woman he loves is just hours away, but he will never marry because a pack of wild undercover cops will execute him and unleash a deadly rain of 50 bullets on him and his friends. The crime? Cruising while black. Sean Bell, unarmed, is 23. And the corporate media merely explains it may have been a case of contagious shooting. One cop fires, two cops fire, three cops. Get the picture? It's a kind of social illness like alcoholism. But neither Sean Bell, Trent Benefield, nor Joseph Guzman were armed. According to some reports, one of the men said he was armed. Like the madmen who launched a preemptive war on the unsubstantiated suspicion of weapons of mass destruction, undercover cops launched an urban war on unarmed black men, reportedly based on unsubstantiated suspicions, 50 shots, death, and serious injury. No cell phones, no wallets, no candy bars, for such trifles are no longer deemed necessary. In America, blackness is sufficient. Even maleness isn't required, as shown by the recent shooting of an elderly woman who allegedly allowed a drug dealer to use her home. The woman, having lived almost 9 decades, was shot to death while trying to defend her home after it was attacked by undercover cops. According to a neighborhood snitch, he never claimed her house was a drug site, despite police pressure to do so. No significant quantities of drugs were found at the home. What was her crime? Trying to survive to 90 while black? What's more dangerous, drugs or armed undercover cops kicking in doors allegedly on a drug raid? How many of these armed maniacs will ever see the inside of a cell? How many will reach the confines of death row? We know the answer because we've seen this movie before. Paid leave, which amounts to paid vacation, a whitewash of an investigation, and they were just doing their jobs, is all that ever happens. From death row, this is Mumia Abu Jamal. These commentaries are produced by Noelle Hanrahan for Prison Radio.
Shooting crazy. A young mother, her infant dozing in the back seat, drives a car down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., where she meets a forest of barricades. And seconds later, over half a dozen cops, pistols drawn, shouting, and pointing guns at her. Perhaps she panics and follows her instincts. She puts the car in reverse, rolls back a few feet, and tries to drive away. In seconds, the vehicle is Swiss cheesed with bullets, and a young woman is dead. Miraculously, the child is unharmed. Before the smoke cleared, news accounts tell of an exchange of gunfire and a shootout in D.C. In fact, the 34-year-old woman was unarmed. Mariam Carey of Connecticut, who reportedly suffered from postpartum depression, was killed by D.C. police. Media reports are often unreliable shortly after such events, giving confusion and more often the one-sided reports provided by police. Later media accounts painted the woman as psychotic, assuming she was. Is mental illness treated by semi-automatic gunfire? Some cure. Modern American life is stressful, especially given the financial and social pressures faced by millions. Capitalism, as in the ruthlessness of dog-eat-dog, exacerbates that stress. Perhaps these stresses overwhelmed a young mother who couldn't get a grip. Perhaps. But the cops didn't solve these problems. They merely created another one for a child who is now motherless and a family without a sister, a daughter, or a loved one. From Imprisoned Nation, this is Mumia Abu Jamal.
These commentaries are recorded by Noelle Hanrahan of Prison Radio.